We all trust code. It runs our banks, our phones, our world. We task artificial intelligence with solving humanity's biggest problems: disease, climate, logistics. But what happens when we point that intelligence not at the future, but at the past? What happens when it reads a language no human can, from a civilization that vanished in fire and water? And what if, buried in that dead language, it finds not a history but a countdown, a prophecy, a pattern that ends in our time? Today, the year 2025. If you value documented history and cutting-edge inquiry like this, subscribe. It's the best way to support our work. Also comment from which city you're hearing this from. The script is researched and factual, using sources from the archaeological records of Knossos and the linguistic work on undeciphered scripts by scholars like Alice Kober. Now, back to the story. The story starts not with a computer, but with dirt and a shovel. The year is 1900. The place is Crete. British archaeologist Sir Arthur Evans pushes his excavations at a site he calls Knossos. He uncovers a palace, sprawling, labyrinthine, more than 1,300 rooms connected by corridors, covering 150,000 square feet. This is the heart of a civilization no one knew existed. He calls them the Minoans, after the mythical king Minos. They were a Bronze Age superpower. By 2000 BCE, their ships controlled the Aegean Sea. They traded with Egypt, with the Hittite Empire, with Mesopotamia. Their art was vibrant, their architecture complex. They were wealthy, organized, and literate. And then, around 1450 BCE, they vanished. The palaces burned, the systems collapsed. All that was left were ruins and a secret. Their writing. Evans found thousands of clay tablets, not one or two, but thousands, at Knossos, at Phaistos, at Chania. They were covered in two scripts. One he called Linear B. In 1952, Michael Ventris, an architect and amateur linguist, proved Linear B was an early form of Greek, a breakthrough. But the other script, the older one, he called Linear A. It remained silent. Over 1,400 examples of Linear A exist, on tablets, on stone vessels, on jewelry. For more than a century, the smartest minds on earth have tried to crack it. They've failed. It is not Greek. It is not a Semitic language. Its grammar, its vocabulary are unknown. It is the sealed testament of a lost world. The Minoans could speak to us, but we couldn't hear. Then came the machine. In 2022, a joint program between the University of Crete and a Zurich-based AI lab launched the Delphi Initiative. Its goal was not to translate Linear A. That was deemed impossible. The goal was simpler: to digitize every known inscription, every symbol, every tablet, and use a deep learning neural network to do what humans cannot: to see patterns across immense chaotic datasets. The AI was fed high-resolution 3D scans of all 1,427 Linear A artifacts. It analyzed the precise shape of each symbol, the pressure of the stylus, the chemical composition of the clay. It cross-referenced the symbols' locations on the tablets with the archaeological context of where each tablet was found. A tablet from a grain silo is different from a tablet in a temple vault. The machine knew this. For 22 months, the AI processed the data, 3.7 petabytes of it, the equivalent of every book ever written, 100 times over. The research team saw nothing but statistical noise. They were about to pull the plug. Then, on March 11th, 2024, the machine sent its first alert. It had isolated a sequence, a specific group of 7 symbols that repeated, without variation, on 84 different artifacts. Linguists had seen the symbols before, but assumed they were the name of a god or a place. The AI disagreed. The sequence, which the system labeled Core 7, did not behave like a proper noun. It appeared on tablets dating from a narrow window, from roughly 1650 to 1600 BCE, and it was always found on tablets stored in deep archives in the most secure parts of the palaces. This wasn't a list of wine jars. This was a record being deliberately saved. The AI began to map the syntax surrounding Core 7. It found that the sequence was almost always followed by a series of 5 specific symbols. One was a known Minoan logogram for sun or day. Another was a known symbol for earth. A third was understood to mean water or sea. 2 others were complete unknowns. The team ran a frequency analysis. The sun symbol was often paired with a number 200, the earth symbol with the number 1, the sea symbol with the number 12. The text was fragmentary. A shopping list? A tax record? But the context felt wrong. These were not records of daily commerce. They were archived with the solemnity of scripture. The breakthrough came from the Phaistos disc, discovered in 1908 by Italian archaeologist Luigi Pernier. It's a fired clay disc about 15 centimeters in diameter, covered on both sides with a spiral of 241 stamped symbols. It is unique. No other object like it has ever been found. Its purpose is a total mystery. The Delphi initiative fed a hyper-detailed scan of the disk into the AI. The machine recognized 45 unique signs, and it made a connection. No human had. 5 of the symbols on the Phaistos disk were identical to the 5 symbols that followed the Core 7 sequence on the tablets. The disk, the AI argued, was a key, a Rosetta Stone not for translation, but for context. The symbols on the disk were not just writing, they were pictorial. One of the unknown symbols was a shape that looked like a plume of smoke. The other looked like a man holding his hands to his eyes. Suddenly, the sequence wasn't a tax record. It was a narrative, a warning. Core 7, whatever it meant, was the subject. What followed was a description of an event. Sun, earth, sea, smoke plume, man covering eyes, and the numbers, 200 suns, 1 earth, 12 seas. The team fed the new interpretation back to the AI. The machine searched for a historical anchor. It scanned geological, astronomical, and atmospheric data from the Bronze Age. It found one catastrophic event that fit the timeline of the tablets between 1650 and 1600 BCE, the Thera eruption. Today, we call it Santorini. Back then, it was a single round island 110 kilometers north of Crete. Around 1628 BCE, the volcano at its center exploded. It was one of the largest volcanic eruptions in human history, a VEI-7 event, 4 times more powerful than Krakatoa. In 1883, it ejected 60 cubic kilometers of rock and ash into the atmosphere. The explosion was heard 3,000 kilometers away in Scandinavia. The sky went dark. If you value documented history like this, subscribe. It's the best way to support our work. And tell us in the comments what city you're watching from. This script is based on documented facts from the Minoan archaeological record and the known science of the Thera eruption. Now back to the story. The AI's interpretation of the sequence now looked terrifyingly plausible. 200 suns wasn't a duration. The AI proposed it was a description. The sound of the blast was estimated at over 200 decibels, a sound so loud it physically pains you. The one Earth meant a singular event, a world-shaking event. The eruption registered on the Greenland ice cores. 12 seas wasn't a place. It was the height of the tsunami that followed. Models of the Thera eruption predict waves reaching Crete that were at least 12 meters high. Some models say up to 35 meters. The smoke plume symbol was the ash cloud that blotted out the sun for days, maybe weeks, causing temperatures to drop globally. The man covering eyes symbol was the human response. Blinding ash, unbearable light from the initial blast, total darkness. The Minoans weren't writing a poem, they were writing a damage report. This explained the collapse, their northern ports, obliterated by the tsunami, their farms, buried in a meter of toxic ash, their trade routes severed. The sophisticated, palace-based economy starved and fell apart. The survivors faced years of darkness, failed crops, and chaos. By 1450 BCE, the civilization was a shadow, easily conquered by the Mycenaeans from mainland Greece. The mystery was solved. The AI had read the tombstone of a civilization, but it wasn't done. The Core 7 sequence, the 7 symbols that began the warning. The AI determined it was not a name, it was a formula, a temporal marker. The symbols corresponded to a very specific alignment of planets, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and the star Sirius, which was central to the Egyptian and Minoan calendars. The AI scanned astronomical charts. That precise alignment is rare. It occurred in the sky over the Aegean in 1629 BCE, just before the eruption. The Minoans had recorded the celestial prelude to their doom. This is where the story should end, a historical mystery solved by technology, but the AI kept processing. The Core 7 sequence appeared on 84 tablets. The machine noticed a difference. On 83 of the tablets, the sequence was identical, but on the 84th, found in the deepest part of the Knossos archive, there was a tiny modification, an extra stroke on the final symbol. The AI flagged it as a statistical anomaly. A typo? An error? The researchers thought so. The AI did not. It argued the modified symbol wasn't an error. It was a number, specifically a glyph representing a large numerical cycle. The symbol looked like a coil. The AI searched for the meaning of this coiled and symbol in other contexts. It found it on a single damaged weight stone from a merchant's house in Akrotiri, the Minoan city buried on Thera itself. Next to the coil was a series of dots, a calculation. The AI used every known ancient counting system, base 10, base 12, base 60, to decode the relationship. Using Babylonian base 60 mathematics, which the Minoans were in contact with, the AI got a number, 3,625. The final tablet wasn't just a record of the past, it was a prediction. The celestial alignment, Core 7, marks the start of a cycle of 3,625 years. at the end of which the warning would become relevant again. The earth shakes, the sea swells, the skyfire returns. The researchers were stunned. They checked the math. It was a possible interpretation, but it was insane. A 3,600-year-old prophecy. It had to be a coincidence, a glitch in the AI's pattern recognition. They ran the calculation themselves. They took the date of the Thera eruption, around 1628 BCE. They added the cycle, 3,625 years. The result came back. The year 2025. The academic community was, and remains, deeply divided. Linguists say the AI is just a black box, a pattern-matching engine creating meaning where there is none. It cannot understand nuance, culture, or intent. They argue the Core 7 sequence is likely the name of a religious festival tied to the agricultural calendar, and the numbers are just inventory. 180 jars of oil, 12 bulls for sacrifice. Archaeologists are skeptical. Prophecies are for myths, not for a practical mercantile people like the Minoans. They argue the collapse was a complex process of earthquakes, invasions, an economic decline that lasted over a century, not a single knockout blow. But the geologists are not so sure. The AI's warning pointed to a specific kind of threat, a massive volcanic event. And there is a volcano in the Mediterranean far more dangerous than Thera. In Italy, near Naples, lies the Campi Flegrei, the burning fields. It's not a cone-shaped mountain. It is a supervolcano. A 13-kilometer-wide caldera, most of it hidden under the Bay of Pozzuoli. 3.5 million people live on top of it or right beside it. Campi Flegrei has had two super eruptions in its history. One, 200,000 years ago. The other, the Campanian ignimbrite eruption, happened 39,000 years ago. It was the most violent eruption in the northern hemisphere for the last 500,000 years. It pumped so much sulfur dioxide into the atmosphere, it triggered a volcanic winter, dropping global temperatures by 5 to 10 degrees Celsius for several years. Some scientists link it to the final extinction of the Neanderthals. Since 2005, the ground at Campi Flegrei has been rising, in some places by more than a meter a year. The bradycism, a slow swelling of the caldera floor, is accelerating. In 2023 alone, the region was hit by more than 100 earthquakes in a single month. The Italian government has updated its evacuation plans for the 500,000 people living in the designated red zone. The National Institute of Geophysics and Volcanology in Italy watches it 24 hours a day. They say there's no immediate sign of eruption. But they also admit the system is under immense stress. An eruption at Campi Flegrei would not be a local event. It would be a planetary crisis. Ash would cover Europe, shutting down air travel for months. Global food chains would collapse. The sulfur released would create a stratospheric haze reflecting sunlight and plunging the world into a synthetic winter lasting years. It would be a civilization-level threat. It would match the description from the Minoan tablets. Earthshake, skyfire, a sun that goes dark. Is it a prophecy? Or is it a historical echo? The AI did not claim to see the future. It claimed to have decoded a warning, preserved by a civilization that had already lived through it, a warning about a cyclical planetary event. They recorded the celestial alignment that preceded it. They recorded the cataclysm itself. And on one single tablet, they recorded the cycle's length and passed it down. They built their palaces to last, perhaps hoping the warning would too. The counter-argument remains powerful. The AI's interpretation of the coiled symbol as a number, 3,625, is a leap. The connection to Campi Flegrei is speculation. The entire prophecy could be a ghost in the machine, an illusion of order pulled from random Bronze Age data. The Delphi Initiative published its findings in a controversial paper in August 2024. The debate rages online in university halls and in government offices. But the core mystery remains. A dead language, a specific warning, a date. And then, just 3 months ago, came the final piece. In May 2025, a French oceanographic vessel, the Pourquoi Pas, was doing deep-sea core drilling in the Hellenic Trench south of Crete. They were studying past earthquake activity. They drilled a sediment core from the seabed 2 kilometers down. In the core, they found the expected layer of tephra, the ash from the Thera eruption, a clear white band in the mud dated to 1628 BCE. That was expected. What they found underneath it was not. 21 meters deeper into the core, separated by layers of sediment corresponding to thousands of years of oceanic history, they found another tephra layer. It was thicker. The chemical signature was different. Not from Thera. The particles matched the unique chemical fingerprint of the Campanian ignimbrite eruption from Campi Flegrei 39,000 years ago. And buried just above that ash layer, they found microfossils and pollen that indicated a catastrophic sudden climate shift. But that wasn't the discovery that made headlines. In the sediment layer dated to approximately 37,600 BCE, 3,125 years before the Campanian eruption. Geophysicists detected a massive disruption, evidence of a colossal tsunami, a deep-sea landslide triggered by a seismic event of unimaginable scale. Another cycle, another precursor. The Minoans were not the first. Their warning, recorded on clay tablets and stored in the heart of their palace, may not have been about Thera at all. Thera was just the last time the clock struck. They were preserving a memory of a much older, much larger catastrophe, written into the very geology of the planet. A cycle of planetary stress that repeats, a pattern the Earth remembers. The AI didn't invent a prophecy. It just read the Earth's own ledger. The alignment in the sky is returning. The ground beneath Italy is swelling. The machine has found the pattern. The Minoans left the warning. The year is 2025. The cycle is complete. The receipt is due.